Welcome everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call. This is the Tuesday 8 a.m. community call happening with Microsoft for speakers, primarily with certain exceptions every now and then, but those are pretty rare. Today is 23rd of April 2024. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a principal product manager in the Microsoft 365 community areas. Today we will have only 2 demos, which is cool, because that also means that we don't need to rush. We can go through things gradually and have a not rushed thing in necessarily in 15 minutes. We can go a bit longer than that if needed. Again, if you are super strict already recorded in 13 minutes, it's okay. That's fine as well. We can stop a bit earlier today as well as needed. Now. We will cover some of the updates and news from Microsoft 365 and platform. Latest news across Microsoft blogs. I will collect and share that in a chat so everybody has access on it. If you're interested on checking what's happening, there's so many blog post locations on blog location nowadays, so it might be a bit hard to actually find the relevant blog posts for you. And then we'll move to the actual stars of the day, which will be Marc Windle and Matt Ruma. So Marc is going to continue the series on the SharePoint Embedded demos and SharePoint Embedded use cases, and then Matt Ruma is going to talk about monitoring email support, monitor email support blocks with AI. That doesn't make any sense. Using Power Automate. Anyway, we're looking forward on that one, and we'll fix the title as needed. Now, we have a lot of assets available for you to get started. The main assets here to remember is the AKMS community videos or AKS community YouTube. That's our Microsoft 365 Power Platform community YouTube channel. Every single day we're publishing something new there. Last week, I think we did 18 new videos within a week. And that's starting to be a bit too much, but at the same time, there's a lot of teams and feature crews who are shipping a lot of stuff in Microsoft. So we're trying to help them by providing them the opportunity of releasing videos in this channel as well. And of course, we are publishing all of our community calls and demos in that channel. So that's a lot of stuff. In LinkedIn, we have a page and we have a group. Both of them are available for you to take advantage. A lot of open source assets, a lot of samples, and our one URL to remember is AKMS Community Home, which has been redesigned. It looks really, really cool. This is absolutely brilliant work done by Stefan Bauer, and N8D is his company, but he's doing that this all from the community work side and open source side. Stefan is an MVP as well. And then Stefan did the design, and Hugo Bernier implemented this as a real usable Hugo automation thing in the GitHub pages, and it works amazingly well. Some of the new things on the website, by the way, if you're interested, we have this upcoming events section, which is on the lower right corner, where you can always go and see what are the upcoming events. We're just finalizing all of that stuff, so it might actually still mark today's call coming live from Orlando. That is obviously not happening. That's happening next week when we have the Microsoft 365 community conference at Orlando, but we're just fine-tuning and polishing things. If you find something, if there's a feedback, please do let us know using our social media channels or in chat right now. That's absolutely an option as well. But looks beautiful, 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 beautiful. We do have quite a lot of community calls, and this one is the 8 a.m. Tuesdays community calls. We will have a break on this call in July and August, and that's mainly because Microsoft people are not that available during that time. So it's easier to actually cancel that clearly through July and August and continue back in September. Now, Power Platform monthly community call, Office Admins monthly community calls do continue throughout the summer, and then we have the 7 a.m. Thursday series, which will keep on going until the end of the world, which is hopefully not soon, hopefully years, thousands and thousands of years from now. But that happens every single Thursday, 7 a.m. Pacific time. It's either Microsoft 365 Power Platform community call or the Vivo Connection SharePoint Framework community call. A lot of excitement on those calls as well. All of the recurrent invites at AKMS community calls, and you can always get the agendas and at the meetup service in that lower URL. We also do welcome you to do demos in these calls. That would be brilliant. So if you build something in your day-to-day work which you would like to show us with learnings and things what you learned, or you found a new feature in out-of-the-box capabilities, or you have an open source solution, all of that is welcome. The only kind of a thing to consider is that we do not welcome product demos. So this is not about selling a product. This is about sharing learnings with other people in a community. And we have a lot of people already signed up. So our queue is already catching up on June. So we do apologize that you might have to wait a while. But that also means that if you're looking into doing a demo, please sign up early. So we will get you in the queue and get you scheduled early enough. So you will have your session as fast as possible. It's cool to see the demand on a lot of this stuff as well. That's a good point from Casper on the chat, if you have access on the chat. So 2038 will be a complex year for IT in many reasons. Something similar related on the 2000 year transition, all of that. Now, getting started with Asset in Microsoft Cloud, we do have our Microsoft 365 developer program, which is unfortunately in pause, and it might come back, it might not come back. We're still yet to be fully clarified, but there's a lot of assets to be get started on the Microsoft 365 Power Platform side. Now, if you don't have an active developer tenant, you don't have a Visual Studio subscription, which would give you an active developer tenant. And unfortunately, right now, the only kind of a suitable option is to then to do a single account tenant. Now, there are advantages of doing this. This is a paid option, and it's $6 a month per the simplistic subscription, but it will give you a real Microsoft 365 tenant, which nobody can take you away. There's no surprises, no nothing. As long as you keep on paying, it is yours. And you can claim the URLs and all of that. So there's some advantages on this one as well, but it's not free, and we do understand that. Why is it not free? Well, we had a problem related on bad people taking advantage of the developer program in a really bad way. So if you give people free things, then they will start taking advantage of those free things, and then bad things happen. And that's exactly what happened with here. So we had to figure out and pause the program before we can figure out how can we validate who are these people who are using these developer tenants and how they're using that and all of that. And that is all of the mess behind of this. We would love to get the program back, but again, alternative here is a paid workaround, and I do not know when this situation gets clarified. Hopefully soon, hopefully later. But $6 in a month for a work developer tenant. Work-related tenant, which is yours. Again, as long as you keep on paying, is not massive amount of money either. Again, depending on where we're living and depending on the situation, but still, that is a great option. Now, we do have a platform, Microsoft 365 Power Platform shows. We have the PMP Weekly, and we also have Mondays at Microsoft, which is all about community at Microsoft all up, and that's including Microsoft 365 Power Platform. And then the Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast is coming back in after Build 2024. So I know that Jeremy is planning to do recordings and Build, and then starting a cycle, not necessarily in a weekly basis, but still releasing new episodes within a show. On top of this, we also have a lot of samples available. We're hitting now 1,940 plus samples, and I know that we have some GitHub sample repos which are not yet onboarded on this location, so we're super close on hitting 2,000. A lot of great samples from one centralized location, again as community samples. So please take advantage of this within your work. Some background noise, which I will quickly mute here, and clicking once again. Oh, that was actually fast. Somebody help me on that. Now, on the sharing, as you find the sample, you might be wondering, how can I get started that sample? And it's not, if you're not super familiar with things, or you would like to contribute your sample. We are actually now getting back with sharing is caring. Finally, it took us a while. There has been some medical leaves, there has been some reorgs, there have been some resource challenges and all of that. But the samples contribution session is now scheduled May 20th at 9:30 PST. That is roughly, quickly calculating, 5:30 GMT, roughly, if I had to do the calculation correctly. But everybody from Europe and US can easily join on that. We do understand that if APAC has demand, they cannot necessarily join on that. But if there's a high demand in the APAC time zones, we will definitely set up times for those as well. But we'll start with the one, and more stuff is getting scheduled on the website as well. AKMS, sharing is caring. Now, as you then learn how to contribute, you actually can contribute. And as you contribute, it might be fixing a typo. It might be something simple and small. Every single contribution counts. We are changing the world with every single contribution as we're helping others to succeed. And as you contribute, if you sign up on the program, we will give you a correctly verified certification or a badge, which will be then validated by correctly, and there's multiple different correctly badge options which you can sign up for as well. Yes, thank you for the speed. There's so much to talk about and cool stuff, and I'm excited. I can't help myself. So luckily, if you're watching the recording afterwards on YouTube, you can always slow down. That is an option as well. Now, a few things to call out in the events. So we do have Microsoft 365 Community Conference coming up next week, starting actually on Sunday. I will be presenting in one of the developer workshops, and there's other workshops starting on Sunday as well. And then we go through Monday workshop, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is the actual conference, and then Friday workshops as well. A lot of awesome content happening there, and we have thousands of people already registered. It's going to be awesome, and looking forward on seeing some of you hopefully within this conference. On top of this, within 3 weeks, unless I'm calculating the dates wrong, I think it's 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, or 3.5, we have the European Collaboration Summit happening in Wiesbaden in Germany. That's right next to Frankfurt, and you can access that through Frankfurt Airport super easily as well. 14th to 16th May, a lot of cool stuff happening over there. And then we have the TechCon 365 coming up, Seattle pretty soon, actually June 3rd to 7th already. Then DC Dallas following up later this year. And then on September, we have the Power Platform conference happening in Las Vegas and the EMG venue. Super cool pictures from last year from that conference as well. That was awesome as well. Now, on top of this, a lot of community events, massive amount of community events all around the world. And to be able to promote them and to be able to find them, we have created this communitydays.org website where you can go, and if you are organizing an event, you can put your event over there. If you are consuming events or you're looking what's happening all around the world, I want to meet people, you can actually get the list of all of the events which are happening around the world. So we have here USA, Toronto, Lisbon, New Caledonia, Denver, all around the world, Norway, Italy, and so on happening events. Some of these are in person, some of these are virtual, some of these are actually paid with a small fee, but most of them are free. So a lot of opportunities over there. And we also are executing currently a Global Copilot Summit, which is a great opportunity of learning about the Copilot opportunities. Check that one out as well. That's typically a virtual setup, or it's virtual in person. More details at Copilot Summit URL. That's happening from 6th of April of 18th of May. So pretty soon that's ending up as well. Now, on the news section, a lot of news, not actually that much news. We can expect the news section from Microsoft to slow down a bit within upcoming weeks. And that's mainly because the Orlando is happening next week. And then within a few weeks, the Build conference is happening as well. I will paste in all of the news in the chat. But as the Build and Orlando are coming, then that means that we're typically slowing down on announcements until we'll announce them in those conferences. So that's why you will probably see things slow down a bit until we will see another push on all of the cool stuff which is getting live. Before we then go to the Together Mode picture, pretty soon I will set up that pretty soon. But Surpi has some updates also on Teams platform side. So what's new in this side?
Vesa, hi everyone. So we have an exciting feature to share with you. The code block element in Adaptive Card. It enables you to share code snippets as richly formatted adaptive cards in Teams, chats, channels, and meetings. Adaptive cards with the code block element make the code snippet easy to read as the indentation, numbering, and syntax highlighting match the programming language. Additionally, you can add action buttons to view the code as it source or edit the code in the IDEs, such as Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. So do try it out. And if you have any feedback or suggestion, please post on aka.ms Teams platform feedback. The link is available in the footer. You could also configure to the RSS feed and get regular platform updates. So thank you. Over to you, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you, Sorpi, on that one. Really cool. Like Mark was saying on the chat, I love the code block element. That's awesome new capabilities in this side as well. Great. Then it's time for a Together Mode picture. So before we go to the stars of the day with the live demos with Mark and Matt, we have this opportunity of doing Together Mode picture. I will risk it all and put my camera on. Let's see how pixelated we are today. Not too bad. Jennifer is looking pretty good on the waves on the middle. Oh, here we go. Waves are leaving. So we do have 50 seats in the room. We can do this, 50 seats in a room. Hopefully the pixelation will get better and better a bit. Let's wait a few more time, few more seconds, one more or two more rows is a possibility. So if you enable your camera, you will be popping into the picture as well. We do have currently 223 concurrent user within this call. It is pixelated. I do apologize on that one. Apparently, it's not my computer. It is actually on server side. That's what I've been told. Now, I will put the recording on and we'll capture a GIF animation out of that. So let's do some hand waving, everybody. Thanks for joining once again. No pixelation, no pixelation. Thanks everybody for joining. Sorry, Pratt, my hand is waving right in front of you on the screen. There we go. Thanks everybody for joining. We'll grab a GIF animation out of this and share it in social media. Thank you. Hopefully next time, not as much pixelated on this one, but you know, these things do happen. So we'll get that one sorted out. Excellent. Moving on to the demos. So we are right on the schedule. Again, no rush today for Mark and Matt, but we can always close a bit earlier today if needed. But we'll start with Matt around SharePoint Embedded, and then we go to the power of AI with Power Automate and email management with Matt. But Mark, we can see the screen. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, so my name is Marc Windle. I'm a product manager working on SharePoint Embedded, and today I'm going to show you how you can manage files in your Teams applications with SharePoint Embedded. All right, so we'll get started here. But first of all, if you have not yet come across SharePoint Embedded, this talk today is actually a continuation of the series that we've been doing with SharePoint Embedded on these calls. So I would encourage you to, catch up on YouTube if you haven't seen the prior calls. But at a high level, if this is the first time you're hearing about SharePoint Embedded, it is an API-only kind of headless version of SharePoint that you can have and access in your custom applications. You, by using and building on top of SharePoint Embedded, it creates a dedicated partition in your customer's tenant. And it's a dedicated storage partition and lets you, read and manage files and stuff like that. However, not just basic file management capabilities, but it brings along all of the superpowers that we have within the M365 storage ecosystem to your custom application. So collaboration, security and compliance, integrated content management, AI, searching capabilities, and a whole lot more, including Office Collab and whatnot. So there's a whole bunch to that product. And in fact, this next slide kind of scratches the surface. I'm not going to talk about everything that we have in here, but it kind of goes across 4 buckets. By building your custom application on SharePoint Embedded, you can get a whole bunch of stuff kind of out of the box. So content AI, security, collaboration, and core storage. All right. So lots of cool stuff in there, but today I want to talk about how you can build, a file application, a file experience within your existing or new Microsoft Teams applications, and how you can store and manage those files actually within SharePoint Embedded. And all of this is kind of in the context of a sample application that is published within the Teams sample app library. And so you can kind of follow along, or after the call, if you're interested, you can go check out that sample. Everything we talk about today is kind of in the context of that sample app. And so you've got a working sample that shows you exactly how to do this stuff. And that's available at ak.ms/spe-teams. Okay, now, what does this sample app do? It's a basic Teams tab application that lets users create a task and assign it to someone, approve or reject a task assigned to me or assigned to yourself, and then you can view tasks that you've made or tasks that are awaiting your approval. Really simple tab application. In fact, that sample existed before SharePoint Embedded, and they were using a different store for those tasks. But the new sample, the one that I've linked to, and one that, thanks Vesa, put that in the chat, is actually storing the content and storing those as files within SharePoint Embedded. And you can install that tab app on a Teams channel, chat, or a personal scope. From an architectural perspective, and I just want to cover this before we kind of get into looking at the app and seeing how it works. Each app installation stores tasks in a SharePoint Embedded container, and so for every install, so let's say I installed this on our chat here, or on a different on a particular team that we had, or just at the personal scope, I installed this tab application, there's a container where all of the tasks are stored. And so that's the scope that this app chose to have. You can, of course, have a different information architecture, but at the end of the day, I mean, you need a container within SharePoint Embedded to store files. And again, a container is a lot like a document library in SharePoint, except it's headless. It's API only, and you can store and manage files within it. And then a container is created along with the first task. And so I'll show what that looks like, but I just wanted to kind of give you a quick overview of how the sample app works and then the underlying architecture as it relates to SharePoint Embedded. There's another aspect of this app that you won't be able to see from an end user perspective. And this one I think is pretty interesting. And so when you go look, if you want to go look at that sample app, there's an implementation here that allows you to kind of manage the creation of SharePoint embedded containers and other objects as part of kind of lifecycle events of your team's application. And so there's really like an implementation of a lifecycle management of SharePoint embedded containers in that app. And this is interesting. So what you can do is you can set up a subscription on Teams installation related events. And so there are 2 new events. These are actually not yet available, these events. The development of them is in progress, and they are coming very soon. But the new events are Teams app installed event and Teams app removed. And when you get notifications on those events, you can actually, basically you're getting a heads up that your app has been installed on a chat or a team or on some user's personal scope. And when those events happen, you can create an associated SharePoint embedded container that is specific to your application where you can manage files for that. So depending on what your Teams app is doing, it's a good place for you to be able to manage content within a particular installation of your app. And then, so yeah, when the app is installed, a container is created, and when it's uninstalled, a container is recycled. Of course, you can choose to restore that container if the app gets kind of reinstalled. Containers live within the recycle bin for 93 days. Okay, so that's it for kind of me explaining what this app is and some of the architecture. Let's get right into taking a look at how it works. But before we do that, I just want to show you what happens when you click on that link. So this is the tab request approval app working with SharePoint Embedded. On that page, there's a whole bunch of instructions on how to get started with that app. There are kind of 2 ways. These instructions have you using kind of ngrok to set up, and you set up on your local development machine. What I have done actually in this sample, just in case you do it yourself and it looks a little bit differently from what you see today, is I am using GitHub code spaces for this. And so I just created a code space on the main branch of this. I found it to be much easier, so I don't actually have to create a dev tunnel or anything like that, because GitHub code spaces will create that environment for me. And I get a URL where I can access the link. Okay. Actually, one more thing before I go into showing you how the app is. I've gone through a whole bunch of prerequisite steps to set up the Microsoft Intra app registrations. Now, there's a set of steps required to set up SharePoint Embedded that I'm not going to cover today, and in fact, we've covered on previous installments of this series. So I recommend checking that out. But again, linked to in the GitHub instructions, there's a set of additional instructions for setting up SharePoint Embedded for you. But the short story here is I have an Entra app for the Teams tab request approval application, and I've got some graph permissions associated with that lets me do stuff within Teams and stuff within SharePoint Embedded. I'm not going to get all the details of that. Okay, so this is what the tab application looks like once it's installed. It's really, a very simple application meant to kind of demonstrate some of the things you can do. I think the code is the most interesting part. But here we go. I can create tasks. And so like this is effectively creating a task, has a title description. I can assign it to someone. I can view requests associated with that. So like if I create a task, it'll show up here. And then I can look at approvals that are pending action on me. So really straightforward in terms of what this application does. The thing of note here is that these tasks are actually stored as file objects within SharePoint embedded containers. And so this particular chat has this tab application installed on it. and there is an associated SharePoint embedded container under the hood there, and all of the tasks are created within that. And so this, when you integrate SharePoint Embedded with Teams applications, it gives you a good place to store files. And so I will make a demo task here, and I can assign it to a user. And when I do that, send the request. I believe I need to reload the tab here, and it should show up. So we should be able to see this demo task that we created. So really straightforward what this task does, or what this sample application does. The last thing I'll show you when we're looking at the app, and then I'll kind of get into some of the code to show you how this works. Actually go over here. There's nothing interesting particular to show. Like I said, these events that I was talking about that your Teams application can subscribe to, which is when an app is installed and when an app is removed, they're not yet implemented. And so we're just kind of mocking it right now by putting those events in the chat. But again, like I said, very soon these events are going to be there. So you're going to be able to subscribe to it independent of SharePoint Embedded. You can subscribe to when your app is installed or removed. But the neat thing about that when it comes to SharePoint Embedded is that you can use that for lifecycle management of containers. And so you can kind of manage the content of your Teams tab application or other type of Teams application. Manage the content within SharePoint Embedded. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to pop quickly over to Visual Studio Code just to show you how this stuff works. Now, I mentioned I have this in a GitHub code space. If you haven't used it yet, I highly recommend doing it that way. All I did was create a code space based off of the main branch of the entire Teams sample app repository. And then once you do that, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you get. First of all, you can kind of not use resources on your machine, but you also get the ability to kind of get a URL where that is hosted. And so when you run your app, you can go visit that, which is what I'm doing here. And port forwarding and things like that are happening automatically. But looking at this, just looking at some of the code here, what's happening when I showed you? So I created a task, and ultimately on the server side, when that gets created, it is calling this function in request provider. And effectively, it is really straightforward. It's getting a graph access token. It is getting a container for that particular installation. And if one does not exist, it's going to create or get it. And so we get a container object either way. It's creating a SharePoint embedded container. And then it is taking that task that we created, so just the title and the description, who is assigned to, it's creating a stream object and creating a file for that within SharePoint Embedded. So really straightforward there. If we look at the container provider, creating or getting a container async, all that is doing is, like, if we don't have a container already, it's creating one. This is what the request looks like. I know we've covered it in prior sessions, but if you haven't seen it yet, you create a container. It has a display name, a description, a container type ID, and you send that request off to the new containers API, also available on Graph. It'll create a container, which again is just a place for you to put files. And then after that, we are creating that file, and that is getting created as a JSON file, and it's getting stored in the container. So really straightforward. Again, if you haven't had a chance to look at that Teams sample app, I recommend that you go do that. That's it in terms of managing files and Teams applications with SharePoint Embedded and building on top of that. And one quick plug. If you happen to be fortunate enough to be going to the M365 conference that's happening next week, I will be doing a SharePoint Embedded session there on Wednesday, I think at 2 p.m. local time. So if this sounds interesting to you, or SharePoint Embedded in general, be sure to check that session out. Thank you very much for your time today, and that's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. I'll be sitting in the audience definitely next Wednesday, so definitely looking forward on that one. Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Mark. Really awesome stuff there. And this is good. We're in no rush whatsoever. We are, going along here. If we only have one more demo with Matt, we can move on Matt on your screen and start queuing that on. If we are closing a bit earlier today, it's all good. Everybody needs a bit more time on their calendar. But Matt, do we have a audio? Everything good?
Yep. I think, can you hear me all right? You should be able to see my...
Yep, we can see the screen. We can see you and we can hear you. So this is a great match.
Awesome.
Take it away.
Awesome. Well, hey, great to be here, everyone. My name's Matt Ruma. I'm a cloud solution architect in the low code space in our manufacturing OU. So as a cloud solution architect, I really work closely with our customers as far as acceleration and adoption around the Power Platform. So I do a lot of things around upskilling, proof of concept development, and even unblocking some of the technical challenges that they have. I work a lot with citizen developers, or I prefer app makers, but maybe they don't have a traditional software development background. So I'm always looking for creative ways to kind of do things as simple as possible with the Power Platform. So today I'd like to share with you one of the proof of concepts I worked with one of our customers on, and it was really this notion around helping their help desk. And their current workflow was an end user just submits a support request, and then a help desk agent monitors a mailbox. Sometimes they don't get to it for a while. I mean, it could even take days. But for this particular process, that was acceptable and was within the parameters of their service level agreement commitments. But sometimes those requests came in and customers were very frustrated or impatient. So in an effort to kind of mitigate this, they really wanted to be more responsive. And if a given request, the customer was frustrated or angry, they wanted to be able to escalate that to management. And this was kind of the proof of concept as far as, can the Power Platform do something like this? Can it monitor an Outlook mailbox, look for messages that hadn't been responded to, look at the body of that message, and then run it through some type of sentiment analysis to see what the tone of the sender was, and if it scored negatively, could it escalate that then to the manager? So again, just looking at the use case and kind of putting together a POC with the customer, we came up with this strategy. We're going to look at a scheduled trigger, and in my demo, I'm running it once a week, but ideally this would probably run every 10 minutes. We used a variety of connectors here. We used the HTTP with Microsoft Entra ID for fetching some of the things with messages. I wrote this a few months back. So there were some challenges around using the Outlook connector to get messages. There was some limitations around the number of messages that you could receive. So I opted to go with using the making my HTTP calls with the Entra ID connector to grab those messages, and then we were going to leverage O365 to send messages, and then use the built-in sentiment analysis model for determining the tone of the message here. I'm certain things have changed since I've done this POC, so there's probably some more efficient ways to do it. But at the end of the day, the POC did exactly what the customer needed it to do and help them address the business challenge in their organization. So with that, we will go ahead and hop over to the demo here. And I'll share this. I'll share the slides as well. But I'm just going to walk through the structure of this flow. So again, I started with a recurrence trigger. I scheduled it to run once a week, ideally probably run every 10 minutes. And then I was invoking an HTTP request. And And you can see here the URL of my request. And a lot of the times when I'm working with Graph API, I'll leverage the Graph Explorer to kind of test those queries out, make sure I'm getting the results that I need before I pop it in here. Of course, sometimes the flows take a little bit longer to run. So using Graph Explorer, I can get at the correct syntax faster. Once I get all those messages, I'm just pulling them by conversation ID. So every time an email message comes into a message box, it gets tagged with a conversation ID. And if there's any replies to that message, it will also have that same conversation ID. So I'm just trying to get a list of all the messages in the inbox, and I just want to pick off the conversation ID. Once I get the conversation ID, I'm going to go ahead and build a single element array. It's really just going to be a list, an array of string values, because sometimes if that message has already been replied to, I'm going to have multiple conversation ID values in there, and I really just want the unique ones. Again, just trying to make this simple to operate. And then I've got some variables in here just to check to make sure I'm getting certain numbers. But the one thing I saw this was kind of neat is I go get all my conversations, or I get all my messages out of my inbox. I grab that conversation ID. I've got an array of those, and it could be multiple ones in there. There's a technique where you can union two arrays with each other, and it will remove the duplicate values. So if I had a message, if I had duplicate conversation IDs in there, unioning these arrays would eliminate that. And then once I had the unique conversation ID, then I would go through and I would loop through them. And now I would go and I would pull all the conversations that were for that given message. I would run through my parse again to get the details of it, because now I needed the body of the message. And then what I would do is look to see, hey, is there more than one message in here? If there was more than one message in here, then I would bypass it. It means it's already been replied to. And the customer's use case was they only wanted to look at messages that hadn't already been replied to. So once I got that, I then was going to run it through sentiment analysis. Now I've got a loop here because again, my query up here to get the messages is always going to return an array. But once it gets into this side of my condition, there's only one element in it. So I could have did some things like with a first and done some parse, but again, just looking at the easier way to do it and trying to get it in a way, because I need my app maker to be able to take it over. We just kept it simple. So the one thing I did is I used the conversion connector to take that HTML, because that message may have came in at HTML and I want to convert that into text. So I can strip out all my HTML tags. And then I go ahead and take that body and I run it through sentiment analysis and look at the where it'll give me probability of negative, neutral, or positive, which I'll show once we run this. But in my case, I said, hey, if the probability that this is negative, that the whole message itself has a negative tone is greater than 0.4, greater than or equal, it goes from 0 to 1. At that point, I'm going to assume that it's negative, and I want to go ahead and escalate that message. So I'm going to go ahead and reply to that message. I'm going to grab the message ID of it so that I can make sure that my reply gets attached to the conversation. And then I'm going to go ahead and send it to the help desk escalation mailbox. So I'm just pulling this from an environment variable in my solution. And then I'm just appending the subject, and I'm just tagging on the words escalated. So just a very simple flow to monitor a help desk email box. So now let's see what this looks like in action. So I'm going to be acting, my email is going to be acting as the help desk, and then I've got demo user, which is the one that will be used to submit these tickets, and then demo manager will be the one that they get escalated to. So I just wrote a little Canvas app that uses a flow, and I'm a big fan of the AI prompts now. So I created an AI prompt so that it could generate me messages. So I can give it a number of emails to generate, and I can just give it a tone, or it can pick from some random tones. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. It's going to generate 5 emails for me, hopefully within the flow to create that. It's going to go ahead and pick some negative ones. But if I hop over here to my demo account, you've seen I've sent 5 emails. Okay, and these are they're just randomly generated from an AI prompt. And then if I hop over here to my mailbox, you can see here I've got, go ahead and delete that one. I've got these help desk tickets that are sitting in here. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop over to my flow, which again, we would have scheduled running probably every 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and test this. And it's relatively fast. I'm doing some things as far as when I get into the loops. I'm doing some of that stuff concurrently. Doesn't necessarily need to run in a sequential manner. But this will go ahead and execute. It will go look at my email box. It's grabbing a list of all the message in the inbox, pulling out the conversation ID, looking for unique ones. And then as it gets the unique ones, it's rerunning through those and getting the whole thread, because some of those conversations may be sitting in the sent items. So as a whole, I need to make sure I'm pulling all of those in there to make sure that I've got the whole thread. And now if I if I go back over to my demo user inbox, you can see 2 of the messages were flagged with a negative sentiment, and therefore it was escalated a reply that included the user, letting them know that, hey, your message is important to us, apologize for any frustration or inconvenience, as well as it forwards that to the manager's box from an escalation perspective as well. And then you can see over here, yep, here's the ones that it replied to, and then these were the ones that it ignored. And then just for kicks and grins, if I were to go back here and run it again, ideally, nothing should happen, assuming I get the same sentiment analysis result. But as a whole, this should just run and kind of bypass those, because it recognizes those 3 or 2 of them have already got replied to, and then the other ones it will go ahead and run them again through sentiment analysis. So you can see here, if we go look at what that looks like, you can see here, analyze positive, and then here's the score. So the probability that it's negative, neutral, positive, and I could act on it accordingly. Some things you run into, like as far as trying to tweak the model, like I ran into where I was also looking at the subject along with the body, and if the sentiment of the subject was like computer troubles, that automatically got escalated as a negative sentiment. So I didn't know if I necessarily wanted to do that. So you'd have to work around and play with the model a little bit, even looking at the greetings, because right now it looks at the whole body, where sentiment analysis can also break it down by sentence. So if you wanted to look for maybe certain sentences that had a high level of negativity, you know, if I started an email off with like, hey, jerk, or something like that, that's going to automatically escalate it into a higher negativity. So just a simple way of, I think all in all, putting the POC together, I think maybe took me about hour and a half, and then just spending some time with the customer to go over it. And they made their tweaks to it. It is ALM friendly. So I did show them our customer leveraged the native Power Platform pipelines. So from that perspective, they were able to deploy it from one environment to another. It took me a little bit to figure out actually what to bring into the solution. I think it's actually bringing in you bring in the custom API, it'll bring in everything else, but it brings in a lot of pieces for those, at least for my prompt for generating my emails. And then looking at it from a next level, if I wanted to make this even simpler, again, looking at AI prompts, I could actually create AI prompt and actually give it the conditions for how I wanted to set it, the tone, and I could tell it, hey, the text provided might be HTML. If it is, make sure you strip out the HTML tags, and then return me a JSON object of the body as well as what the overall sentiment was. And in this case, if this worked, then I could actually remove that conversion step from my Power Automate flow to kind of, again, where I can eliminate certain steps. I definitely want to try to do that. But again, just trying to leverage the tools I could out of the box, and then just trying to make it as easy for the user at the end of the day to kind of take it over and put it in their own environment. Ways I can make it better, I could probably leverage some more environmental variables or environment variables, especially for the body of the escalation message. I am kind of being a little redundant in my queries. You know, I'm not being super efficient. I could just get everything in the inbox and all the associated conversations with them, and then try to minimize my looping there. The timing constraint, I probably want to check to see, you know, maybe give it 30 to 60 minutes to reply to a message before I escalated it. And then, as I showed you, using AI prompt, maybe instead of sentiment analysis, would eliminate a couple of different, or a couple of the steps. So just to recap, we looked at how to use Power Automate to monitor an Outlook mailbox. We leveraged the AI Builder capabilities, which were fairly simple to get in and look at the sentiment of that email. If a negative sentiment was detected, we went through an email escalation process. We looked at some possible ways to improve the flow. Pointed out it is ALM friendly, which I'm very big on with my customers to start with solutions. We leveled it up with AI prompt. And it's my hope that there was something here for everyone to learn. And as always, if you've got better ideas on how to do this, please share. I'm all about learning and being more efficient. So with that, that is it.
Excellent. Excellent presentation, Matt. A lot of good feedback on the call, and I explicitly want to call out Stephanie had a really cool comment. So credits on great presentation. Major kudos on Matt Ruma for speaking skills on keep going. So please, you're more than welcome to join us again. So that was really
Thank you.
Good. So I know that I used to be a field consultant architect at some point. So we do a lot of presenting and within that role. But again, it's still a skill to be able to structurally go through the topic and explain that in an understandable format. So thank you for that. Awesome stuff.
Thanks, everyone.
Excellent. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt, both for absolutely brilliant demos today. And see, we're right on the schedule. This is really good. We're closing in 5 minutes before the end of the hour, which is great. We didn't go long today. We've been every now and then having a bit of a challenge with that. So, but this is good. This is good from a timing perspective. Not a bad calls with 2 demos either. Now, next week, we will have 3 demos, and this will be a special one. We will be broadcasting this live from the Microsoft 365 Community Conference at Orlando. So we have already confirmed all of the technical AV requirements and all of that stuff, and we should have a video feed coming directly from the presentation room as well. So that should be a kind of a special get-together with the people in person at the Orlando if you're there. But if you are joining remotely, you can still be in the spirit of Orlando and Microsoft 365 Community Conference. So looking forward on that one. We have Kathy Du talking about the introduction of new SharePoint Brand Center, custom fonts, and more should be actually there. And then Fabian Williams is going to talk about demystifying Microsoft Graph Connectors, really the way of getting the data from Microsoft Copilot. And he's going to talk about learnings on that one. Fabian is from the Microsoft Graph Copilot team. And then we do have an to be announced soon a slot for the Power Platform. And this is from one person within the Power Platform team, engineering team, who is at the Orlando. We're just waiting for final confirmation who's going to do that one. But looking forward on that one, really cool demos coming up on there as well. Now, in the meanwhile, there's a lot of opportunities of engaging with the community. So you can, for example, take advantage of our Discord server. We are hitting now 1,948, I guess was the number earlier today, which is great. More and more people are coming in and helping with the questions and having an engagement between each other. Obviously, this is not intended to replace or compete with any of the out-of-the-box forums which we have from Microsoft. We're just looking into going where the people, basically we were looking into our people in the Discord, and people were in the Discord, and now we're hitting 2,000 attendees. So it's cool to have that opportunity to engage there as well, rather than forcing people to another location. That's an easy way of signing up, AKMS Community Discord. And then in the meanwhile, we would also love to have feedback around the course, what we're doing, course topics and demos, and what you would like to see in here. I see feeling that these are valuable for you, and all of that input would be super grateful, because that helps us on keeping these calls alive also within the future. That isn't always an opportunity for Microsoft getting things adjusted, so to feed positive feedback especially is important to be able to continue these calls. Now, this call will be available as a recording in our YouTube channel, Microsoft 365 Power Platform Community YouTube channel, within 24 hours, typically in 12 to 18 hours. 18 hours probably is more accurate. We will announce that in Twitter and in LinkedIn when that's available, or you can subscribe to that channel and you'll stay up to date on what's happening. The next call happening on April 13th, and as mentioned, that will be coming live from Orlando. All of that technical details are already settled. You can see all of the calls at the AKMS Community Calls URL in the new brilliant looking fancy website where all of your current invites are for you to download. But that's it for now. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you Matt and Mark one more time for the great demos today. Stay safe, have fun, and see you in the course, and hopefully see you in person in Orlando. And we do understand that not everybody can go there, but that's why we have these remote calls as well. Everybody is always welcome. But thank you for this one. Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.